Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas Newton. I'm a career directive student for Professor Monday, and she's given me the opportunity this week to teach your all's class, just to give me a little bit of experience and an idea of what to expect when I actually get to start teaching. So I'm super excited. I hope we have lots of fun and I hope I teach y'all something. So this week we'll be going over chapter 8, which is in your all's books. It should be video and all things video. Hopefully you guys have done the readings. If not, I really encourage you to do the readings. For those of you who will get to attend the in-person class, I'll be going over in person how to work the Premiere Pro software that we use and how to take and edit there and work there. For those of you who are not able to attend the in-person lecture, I'll have a video link on Canvas for you guys to go watch on how to use Premiere. It's like 17 minutes. It's a little lengthy, but this guy I think covers everything really well. So yeah, let's hop into it. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys so you can see the PowerPoints. Let's see if I can do this correctly. Share screen, desk one, yes, share. There it is, oh snap, okay. So we're gonna share PowerPoint screens, perfect. So digital media, this is chapter 8, video, like I done said. So yeah, let's hop into it. So these are some chapter highlights. Digital videoing, which is like quality factors, compression strategies, film formats, create an original video, and what will go into that, like shooting, editing, rendering, digital video cameras considerations, and guidelines for videoing in multimedia. So these are the things we're going to cover in this chapter. Moving pictures. So here we'll talk about film, analog film, and analog videoing. So the differences between those are an analog film is like a transparent film, like photos, you know? So it's like a photo reel, like at the old timey, you know, like a big clunker, you know, that you would see like at the movie theaters, right? And it takes those images and it rapidly plays them really fast to give you a video. Analog video is the difference between the film and video is like film is physical, transparent picture, and then video is a digital version of that on your computer or something like that. So yeah, those are the differences between that. Moving on to our next slide. Okay, digital video challenges. So this is like the large file sizes, the hardware preferences, contribution methods, sorry guys. And so this is just a good time to mention the space that you will need videoing. So for every second that you have a video in your storage, it takes about 30 megabytes of storage in your space, right, when you're videoing. So of course, a video will take up way more space than regular photos will. Cool. So when we're videoing, some factors that goes into that is your screen resolution, your frame rate, and compression method. So these are things that determine the quality of your video, right? So it's good to know, it's good to make sure if your computer can handle the video, right? If your computer is capable of handling the storage space and at the speed your video is going, making sure that all these things will work on your computer, right? Let's see here. I've got some notes down here, so if you guys keep me looking down, that's why. So let's see. Okay, moving on. Screen resolution. So some screen resolution things is like, so that's the number of pixels, right, in the screen and that you're recording. So, so it's good to know that if your camera can handle the amount of pixels you're shooting to be on the screen. So if you're shooting for something really high definition, high quality HD, you want to make sure that your camera is shooting to be compatible with that type of resolution for your screen, right? So 360 MP isn't great shooting on your camera for HD, right? So we know this is slower than HD. So it will show, but it will be not great. It'll look slow, it'll look glitchy-ish, you know? So those are just some things to keep in mind when you're thinking of your screen resolution. Frame rate. This is a good one. So frame rate is like how many frames you have per, second. So if say you have more frame rates than you do time, it'll look overly fast. Or if you don't have enough frame rates, if there's less frame rates, it'll make your video look slow and choppy, which will cause you not to have a great video. So compression, this is how we compress the video, right? It's how it's converted to be edited or displayed, okay? So I know there's some slides coming up that really go in depth about the interframe and etraframe. Interframe and etraframe. I think I said that right. So this is really interesting because I did not know a lot about this, I felt, but I had to learn a little about it. So so etraframe is when it shows you every picture that was taken right in the film. So it gives us those like funny moments. I like to call them like the funny moments where a character looks distorted or choppy and it just looks funny, right? So this is where you're seeing every frame in the picture, which gives us those funny moments. The etraframe eliminates those. It only captures the motion, right, of the character that's moving or the scene, right? So it cuts out those funny moments and makes it look more professional. So yeah, variable variable bit rate. It's just the two different. There's two different variable bit rates. There's CBR and there's VBR. CBR always has the same amount of pixels throughout the film, right? So it consistently keeps all the same amount every frame. VBR, it assigns those different numbers. Like this is a good example. So when you're like watching SpongeBob, and it goes from looking like really cartoony, and then it zooms into SpongeBob and it looks like he has facial hair and it gives you all those details. So that's a good example of VBR because it's assigning different amount of pixel rates to that image, so it looks different. So that's just a quick rundown of those. Let's see here. So compress the video. So this is choosing your compression depends on how you want your video to be compressed. If you want it to be on DVD, internet, your mobile devices. So it just depends on the purpose that you intend your video to be for, right? So these are just different ways of compressing those depending on how you want your video to be seen. So this is the slide I was mentioning a second ago, the etraframe, where it talks about showing every picture, in the film. So we get those funny moments. If you look up on the internet, like type in like etraframe and funny Disney ones, those are my favorite because you get pictures of like Aladdin and princesses with these hilarious faces. Later on, Disney really started going in and using the interframe, which really cuts those funny moments out, so it just looks more professional. But so those are those. We already covered those. Variable bit rate, I done covered those. So we're just gonna jump past on these slides. Common video codes. So this is really how your video has been exported. So when you're doing this is just different types of ways that you can export your video out of your editing software to be viewed. I think there's two slides that give you a whole bunch of different lists of things that you can export it out. For me, most commonly, I think we use MJPEG 4. I think that's like one of the latest ones that we use a lot, or Flash video. So yeah, this is a slide that gives you a bunch of examples of those. And here's a whole nother slide full of examples. There's so many ways a video can be exported. So it's really important to know how you would want it to be exported out once you're finished editing, so it can be seen by whoever your intended viewers are. Let's see. So digital videoing, sources of digital videoing. So these are the steps you would take while you were shooting a video, right? So once you've gotten your camera and everything set up and ready, it's really just going through the steps here to shoot your video. So, you would first sit down and come up with your concept, get an idea of what you want to shoot, and then you would go shoot it. You would come back down, drop it, edit it, and then render it to see how it looked and how it displayed and how it come off to your audience. So of course, step one is shooting. It requires planning, intended use for your video, intended audiences, where, when, what kind of technology you'll have after you get done shooting to edit it. So that's just thinking of your editing process. Okay, so there's two things that are super important when you're shooting. Are you shooting to record or are you shooting to edit? So for instance, say that I'm going out and I'm going to shoot a video and I know I'm not going to edit it. I'm going to try to record it as perfect as possible so I can not have to do as much work on it. So that's when you really don't want your camera to shake and you don't want your audio to be bad, or your lighting has to be good. So if you're shooting just to record, it's probably going to be for like Instagram or Facebook or just something quick and easy, just so it can be seen. So, but if you're shooting to be edited, you're going to take a whole bunch of clips and you're going to edit, you're going to shoot different scenes and you're going to different clips. And then you're going to edit those in together to look good. You're going to edit your lighting, make sure your audio is good, because this is a more professional way of shooting. So you can make sure your audience is getting a great video. So digital video cameras considerations. So of course, for instance, this is a video picture of a camera. So when you're videoing, you want to make sure your camera is first charged and what kind of lens you're using. If you're going to use a mic, external mic, what your lighting will be where you are. Make sure you have an SD card in your camera, your storage, and your file format. So these are just a quick list of all the things you would think of before you actually started shooting. So the CCD, I don't know, I can't remember if there's slides after this that'll go in depth about this, so I'll just cover it right now. But the CCD really only affects your lighting, right? That's when you're shooting, and that's something on your camera that helps you adjust your lighting and everything. So lenses, this is super important because your lens, right? Most cameras have a lens that will zoom for you, that you can adjust, and it'll like zoom or zoom out. And then there's lenses, like in the camera, there's software that will zoom just with like in the camera. So I think it's super important to just ignore the software zoom in your thing. So I know, like for your phone, right? Your phone, most phones will zoom. You can zoom on your phone to get a closer picture. And that's okay, because your phone's made to do that correctly, right? Because you don't have an external lens on your phone to zoom. So on your phone, it's probably okay to use the software zoom. But if you're using like a bulky like actual camera, always use the zoom lens. Like, right, you want to work the lens to make sure you're zooming good, right? So your picture don't look funny. So when you're also moving on to microphones, so when you're videoing, do not just rely on the microphone that is like installed into the camera, right? Because that'll mean your audio won't be as great. You won't be able to hear, it'll pick up sounds outside of what you're wanting to. So I know for the art department, we use those little clippy-on mics. Lordy, what are those called? Oh, I can't think of it, but either way, we use the clip-on mics. They're external mics. So those really focus in on who's they're attached to, the sound that is coming closest to them. So in the end, if we're doing an interview or something, the sound quality is so much better. So of course, take knowledge to like your light sensitivity that your camera can, like how well your camera works in a certain light situation. And then of course, your storage media, file format, those are things really you would look at after filming. I'm gonna get a drink of my coffee. Okay, of course, there's slides after it that I just covered. Okay, so we just covered the CCD, which really, like it says here, it really affects your light intensity. Yeah, so this really is focused on your lights, the lighting situation here. Your number of CCDs is just resolution issues. Yeah, so if you feel like I didn't cover this really great, just be sure to go back through the slides, read these in depth, get a good idea of what the book also really covers this really nicely. So the book you guys have, be sure to read those because it'll go into this so much more in depth. Okay, lens, light sensitivity, we just talked about that. Microphones, placement, type, quality. Of course, these are all different types of mics you can use here to get a really good quality picture or sound. I don't know why I said picture. Storage media. So this is really how what you record on your camera is stored. Most people, back in the day, they would store it on tape. But nowadays, with all the technology we have, we store a lot of our video media digitally, just so it's not all over the place. We don't have clumps of tapes everywhere. It's really convenient nowadays, but these are just important to know that these are a way you can store your media. File format, source videos. Let's see, what did I write down about file? So file format is really just what works best for your software, like your video, whatever you think will be best way to file your media that you just recorded. The shooting basics. So of course, if you're an art student, you've probably heard about the rule of thirds. This is like the image of the deer here. This is where something is not dead center in your picture or your frame. It's off by the third, right? And so it really gives you a whole better picture. If this deer was dead center in here facing a weird way, it would look different than if it was placed in the rule of thirds. This is kind of like the golden rule, I guess, for videoing and editing. So yeah, rule of thirds, you've all heard of it probably. Shooting basics, minimize camera motion, camera control and generation motion, pan, zoom. Okay, so to minimize motion. So when we're shooting, it's really best to just use a tripod, right? If your camera's placed on a tripod, you're gonna get much better quality picture. You're not having to worry about it shaking or somebody's hands shaking while they're recording, because that is a super distracting in a video, right? So when in doubt, just use a tripod. It gives you much better quality. And coming down to this, you see pan and zoom. So pan, when you're panning an area, you want to be very consistent in that you're not shaking. So your video is not like crazy. You want to get a nice clean pan, again, probably on a tripod. Zoom, we already covered this with when we talked about the lenses. Use the zoom lens, not the software zoom. You tend to get much better results when you're using the lens to zoom. Take care of your time code. Time code, this is super important. I didn't know this. I didn't really know what time code was, but when you learned, it's so important. So say you have a project, you have 30 minutes, right? You have a 30-minute project to do for class. Well, your time code will tell you how long you have left to record, how long you've already recorded, how long you have left to go. So this is really to be mindful. It formats in hours, minutes, seconds, frames. But be mindful of your time code, because say you cut and you're going to move to a different scene, but you still recorded this, and this that you don't want in your shot. You just wasted that time. So you have to go in and you have to edit that out. And then you might be some frames short because you thought you had all you needed and you had crappy, junky space in your film. So just be very mindful of your time code. Moving on, get the right shot, right? So this is where it comes in to planning. You want to plan as hard as you can. I'm in Professor Monday's videography class right now as well. And we just had to shoot this documentary. It was so much fun, but I feel like we didn't plan as well as we could. So it left us scrambling and having to edit a lot more than we should have. So plan your shots. Go get the right shot. Write down, say, I'm going to get a shot of the trees blowing in the wind and then the leaves crumbling on the ground for a good fall scene, right? be sure you get the right shots so you're not having to go back, reshoot, waste time, you know, edit a whole crap ton more than you have to, really. Step 2, editing. Editing is honestly, I think, some of the funnest part though. That's where you get to sit down, look at everything you just shot and say, oh my gosh, we are so funny. But so this is where you would drop your format. You'd probably take out your SD card and you would plug it into a computer or thing to put it on the computer. You would sit down and you would drop that into Premiere Pro and you would start to edit your film. So you're dropping your clips onto your timeline, you're listening to the sound, making sure everything sounds great, putting those in place, you know. Editing is really such a great time. It's super important to your video process, right? So this is when you're editing, this is where your time codes and your images and audios and scene direction, this is where all of that really comes into place to work, to make your film, right? We know that. Batch transfer selected portions of the, okay, so this is where you really want to be sure when you're dropping all of those images and videos that you just took for your film, you're dropping them all in the right place at the same time to work, right? It would really suck if you were in your editing process and you're in the zone working, you know, and it comes time for this scene that you want and you didn't drop it right. So then you have to go find your SD card, you have to replug it in, you have to make sure it gets dropped, and then you have to make sure it's placed in the right place to where it'll work for your film, right? Right. So just be sure when you're dropping all of that in to get everything you need, right? Keep it in a nice clean order, keep it in, you know, so you know what's what and how it'll work, right? Right. I just said right like 5 times. Basic video editing, source videos, master videos. Really, this is just dropping it in. Like I said, that's so repetitive, but we're gonna go more in depth in this when we start actually doing this on Premiere Pro. At Tusculum, we are Adobe heavy, so we work a lot on their software, which is Premiere Pro. And that's when we're really gonna get down to the basics of the editing and putting the clips there and working them the right way. So be sure if you want to know more about all of the basics of editing, that you go back to the slides or your book and get more details here. And of course, if you have more questions in class, feel free to ask me or Professor Monday. So we're just going to move on. Software, preview windows, library windows, construction windows. So yeah, these are all things that we're going to cover in class person. Editing, operations, splitting, trimming, transitions. Of course, we know transitions is when we want clips to merge nicely and beautifully, and trimming is when, oh, we don't need this, so we cut it off. And then splitting is where we're splitting, put together, right? Right, we know this, super basic. Step 3, rendering. Okay, yeah, more editing process. I done stated that we'll go through most of this in class. If you're not going to be able to attend the in-person lecture, like I said, please watch the video that I put the link in on Canvas. I think it'll be super beneficial to watch. I know it's like 17 minutes long, but honestly, I go to that video so many times if I'm working on a project myself, just to help me, you know, refresh and make sure I'm doing things right. You know, I have a really great friend in class that I run to any second I have questions or, you know, questions about editing or how do I do this and what's the shortcut for this. So if you guys don't have a friend like I do, be sure to watch the video. Rendering decisions, you know, we done talked about all of these. Frame rate, choice data rate. Yeah, we done covered most of this. Guidelines for video shooting. This is mostly just a quick cover of everything I just talked about. So be sure to go back through these and look. Editing, rendering, yes. Methods to control digital video large files by adjustments. Yes, we know. Okay, step creating original digital videos. Yep, wrapping up. So let's see. Steps for creating original digital videos, choosing the right digital video camera, guidelines for shooting your footage, editing digital videos, rendering options for the digital videos, and guidelines for creating digital videos. We covered this. This should be in your book as well. So hopefully you guys have a good idea of everything we covered right now, really. Here's some key terms. Honestly, know the key terms. These are just like things that we should know. It really will be super beneficial in the long run if you know exactly what we're talking about. And that's the last of our slide. Ignore my home screen. It looks like a 5-year-old's computer. Let's see. So we're gonna stop the sharing. How do I stop sharing? Yay. Okay. So guys, thank you so much for watching this lecture. I really hope it was beneficial. Be sure to email Professor Monday if you guys have any questions about something you feel like I didn't cover fully. I can't wait to see you guys in class. And if you guys can attend the video lecture, be sure to check Canvas for any homeworks or assignments that are going to be due. I think we're going to work on a video project this week, so that's going to be super exciting. So I hope to see you guys soon and have a great rest of your day. How do I end it?